Welcome to the Gruber Companies. I'm Pete Gruber. This is the Artificial Future Podcast. This is our impromptu Sunday morning AI podcast where we bounce ideas and talk about all things up and coming regarding artificial intelligence and discuss the impact of this massive disruption that is heading our way. What I have behind me here today is an image rendered from Midjourney, and what I asked for was a robot manager with a room full of humans in a call center or a sales center. And you know what? We tried, both Jesse and I tried a dozen times, and we could not get it to actually put a robot into the image. So we went with a human manager managing a bunch of robots. I guess either one will work, but it would have been more impactful, I think, if we had had a robot with a bunch of humans. But this most likely is going to be more along the lines of the future if employees get replaced. So one of the things that I did to prepare for this session this morning was I found an article, and what they did was they asked AI what the future of artificial intelligence is, and this was the response that ChatGPT-4 gave. And they did the normal caveats, or it did the normal caveats. It's difficult to predict the exact future of artificial intelligence that is rapidly evolving with many possible developments. All right, so we got past the disclaimers. However, then it says, it is likely that AI will continue to be integrated into a wide range of industries and technologies, leading to significant changes in the way people live and work. And one of the things I'm going to get into in this podcast is we have two call centers here at the Gruber Companies. And there's a lot of office staff, of course. And we're always analyzing ways that we can create more efficiencies, more productivity, and utilize these powerful tools that are coming our way. And we'll get into that later here. But what this AI question finally rendered was a number of bullet points. And one of them was increased automation, AI says, and it will be used to automate a wide range of tasks, potentially leading to significant changes in the job market. 2, enhanced decision-making. And AI says it will be used to assist with decision-making in various fields such as, of course, medicine, finance, and marketing. Now, this really piqued our interest because we are marketing people, and these two call centers I mentioned are definitely involved in that activity. And then AI said there will be improvements with the personal assistants, and that AI-powered personal assistants may become more sophisticated, allowing them to handle a wider range of tasks and provide more personalized assistance to users. Now, the early versions of personal assistants are your cell phone, for example. Your cell phone contains an enormous amount of data, and as Elon has pointed out, we're already cyborgs. Look at your attachment to the cell phone and look how much smarter it is than you. Well, as AI begins to permeate our lives and businesses, personal assistance will become much more prevalent and much more tangible. 4, advanced natural language processing. They say as AI continues, it will improve the ability to understand and generate human-like language. Now, this again piqued our interest because look at all the languages on this planet and how difficult it is to communicate oftentimes with so many different languages on the planet and so many common interests. Well, what AI is alluding to here is that language may become more sophisticated and more universal, more realistic, and of course, that means more effective communication with humans. I think there was a experiment done months ago where a couple of, I guess, AI language generators were beginning to talk to each other. And the next thing they noticed was they were beginning to communicate in a language that we did not understand. And the assumption is that it is a far more efficient way to communicate. So eventually the machines may continue with that and teach us that language. Then they talk about the increased use of machine learning, a subfield of AI that involves training models to make predictions or decisions based on data. And it's likely to become even more widely used in the future, which will, of course, lead to development of new applications and new technologies. So again, the abbreviated version of this is AI is likely to improve and involve a wide range of exciting developments that will have significant impact on many aspects of society. So then I want to step further. We have Chat GPT-4, and I asked it, describe how a sales call center will evolve as AI infiltrates. And its response was always helpful. Sure. The integration of AI technologies into a call center can have significant impact and effects on its operation, structure, and efficiency, and the overall customer experience. Here's how the evolution might look. And then again, some bullet points. 1, automation of routine tasks. It says that AI can handle simple queries and routine transactions, enabling human agents to focus on more complex and valuable tasks. Predictive analysis can be used to guide agents and the most promising leads. Enhanced customer interaction. AI chatbots and virtual assistants can provide 24/7 support, also managing inquiries after hours. Voice and sentiment analysis can be utilized to understand customer emotions and tailor responses accordingly. Now, this one was pretty potent in my estimation because people that are in the customer service business have varying degrees of skill, and some of the most successful happen to be people that can read things between the lines. They're not just listening to the words that are being presented, but they're looking for voice, inflection, and if they have the person in front of them, body language. And they can read much more from that oftentimes than what's being said. Ferret out hidden agenda, for example. And at this point, I want to take you into our evolution before we continue here, how AI can benefit business, and kind of give you our trajectory. We've been doing this for 40 years. We've always had sales functions, and I will describe to you what our evolution has been in those 40 years with those call centers. So the first thing that we did, and this was in the last century, the development of a CRM, or a customer relationship manager software package. Our early account managers actually had notebooks, and inside them were what we called blue sheets. And each of those pieces of paper were handwritten with some customer data on it. And this is what they used, and they had it alphabetized, of course, to find their customers, get the contact information, phone numbers, before the internet, by the way, so there was no email address back then. But fax numbers came along later. What we did in the mid-'80s was we found a software package in San Diego called Telemagic. And it was in a newspaper ad. Back then, newspapers were one of the ways that you advertised. And for $99, it said you can have a DOS-based CRM package, a customer relationship manager, that will track your customers for you. So we purchased it, all $99, and we began using it and found that it was extraordinarily powerful. It got rid of all of the notebooks and the papers, and we were able then to track our customers on a computer screen. And shortly thereafter, within a couple years, we got a networked version. Now, the entire sales organization was able to utilize the same customer database. Of course, the customers being assigned to various account managers, but they were able to see, what the other account managers were doing, maybe with other satellite offices or similar businesses, because now it was a network database. We've got a bunch of questions. Let me take care of those before we get too far. We've got YouTube. George is joining us. Good morning. Hey, Mr. Pete and Jesse, thank you for joining us.
Morning, George.
We've got TikTok. John K. He says, "What's up, buddy? I just submitted a service request for my S last night. Looking forward to coming in." Wonderful. Yeah, they'll have that tomorrow morning, and they will contact you. Thank you, John. YouTube, Highlander Apparel. He says, you mentioned Dan Foss, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I've been working on BEVs since I got out of the submarine service. They didn't have wheels, and they are conveyors. Thanks for looking at ChatGPT. All right, interesting comment. We've got YouTube, George again saying, so Jesse, on Double Time Sunday pay today? George is very focused on compensation, isn't he?
Yeah, I appreciate that, George.
You know what? We are salaried, and we do this out of the kindness of our hearts. And we hope you guys are appreciative and enjoying it, that we're coming in on Sundays and exploring cool concepts like AI with you.
Yep, some messages are more important than sitting at home on Sunday.
Yeah. So continuing now with how our call centers evolved, we stopped at the software package that we purchased in the mid-'80s called Telemagic, which, by the way, we still use today. It's gone through a number of gyrations. It's now not only networked, but it's a Windows-based program, and we've highly customized it since then. And all of our account managers operate out of that software package. And the total number of customers, I think these days, is over 500,000 in those databases. So we went to a CRM package, and back in the day, again in the last century, the way that you reach customers used to be direct mail, trade shows perhaps, and then fax machines came along. Initially, they were very expensive, so we leased our first fax machine. They were $1,400 to $3,000 a piece. And, you know, getting started in the last century, that was expensive, so we actually leased one.
That's in, what, 80s?
80s, yes.
$80s, $3,000, so
right.
That's a lot today.
It was the mid-'80s, and it was such a cool concept. We had one right in the sales area, and the thing would ring, chirp a bit, and suddenly a piece of thermal paper came out from across the world or across the country, and someone had written us or sent us a purchase order, and it was always cool to see something like that happen. It kind of woke you up to what technology is capable of doing.
Well, wasn't that technology a piece of that? How you got into... You said you would receive something in the fax, and that would give you a kind of a sales edge or something like that. Do you remember that story?
Yeah, you want me to tell that story?
I think it's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one. So we got our first fax machine, all right? We were leasing it, and it was close to my desk, actually, in one of the sales areas. So one day, a fax comes through, and of course, we always got excited. Oh, what is it, a purchase order? Is it a quote request? You know, something's up. And you know what it was? It was an advertisement. And I was indignant. I thought, how dare they use our thermal paper to send us unsolicited, spam. We didn't call it that back then because before the internet. Yeah, it was the beginning of spam, exactly. Mm-hmm. And I was furious, and, how dare they? And, of course, thermal paper didn't cost that much, but still there was an expense there. And I thought, how arrogant of them, right? I go into the CFO's office a couple of months later, and I happen to remember the company name because when you've got emotion attached to something, it kind of buries itself in your memory, right? And I look at a box near his desk, and it's got that company name on. I said, Stephen, what is this? That's from that company that spammed us, or that, that did unsolicited advertising. He says, well, Pete, I bought paper from them. They were advertising thermal paper. That's what came across that day.
Gotcha, yeah.
And I said, well, why would we support a company that is so arrogant that they're using our thermal paper to advertise? His answer was a paradigm shift for me. He says, Pete, they were the cheapest. And suddenly I realized this is a sales tool. Well,
that's true. That's very true. The thing about it is, though, it's visibility. That's the same thing. That's what the internet has opened up to everybody. Everybody can have a business now. You right. Just need an audience, right?
So picture this. This was like the mid-'80s, right? So I go and I cobble together a flyer. And back then, we didn't have Photoshop. We didn't have these sophisticated tools. We had a Croy machine, which basically generated labels in different fonts. So I created a flyer with a Croy machine, put it on a piece of paper, all these labels, and I began to manually feed that into the fax machine to some of our customers to see what kind of response we would get. Mm-hmm. And you know what? We got purchase orders. We woke up our customers to the new stuff that we have through this technology. Well, doing this manually and feeding 8.5 by 11 piece of paper into a manual fax machine is pretty slow and inefficient. Around that time, some technology came out for our IBM XT computers, and it was called a fax modem card. And what this allowed you to do by having this in your PC, and they were expensive back then, like $400 a piece or something with the software, it allowed you to, from the screen, send a fax. So we found that that was a far more efficient way than Pete sitting there feeding paper into a manual fax machine.
Oh, yeah.
And within a few months, I realized that with the dozens of computers that we had for account managers that were using their workstations during the day, if I put a fax card into every workstation, not only will the salespeople be able to send directly from their PC, but I can commandeer all 40 or 50 PCs at night, pre-program them, and have them all dialing for dollars all night long.
Send it out, yeah.
It was like a second shift. Now, back then, we were still paying long-distance charges, so it wasn't completely free like email became later on once the internet came out by 1995, and we began utilizing that. But anyway, that's a story on our migration into technology, even in 1985, by using direct fax methods to stay in contact with our customers.
Yep, it's good.
So anyway, from there, we then went to email. By 1995, we got so excited about this new technology, and at that time, the internet was dominated by a bunch of bulletin board service teenagers that were running BBSs out of their house, and eventually figured out that if people want internet and they put in some dial-up modems, they can sell connectivity to the internet and generate monthly revenue by giving them access through the phone lines. In 95, we started a company called Extreme Internet in Scottsdale, and we did that very thing, and it became a very successful company for its time. But anyway, then we began to realize that email is a much more effective way rather than doing long-distance phone calls with the fax machine, and it's virtually free once you have your infrastructure taken care of with an ISP, or what they called dedicated lines back then, high-speed lines to your business. So then we shifted to email. And then eventually, we, of course, got a website. We then went to online catalogs. We then created e-stores and live chat, which, again, gave you a second or third shift because it's 24/7. And when your salespeople go home, live chat can continue to at least gather data for the following day when your salespeople can get a hold of that customer and take a look at their need. So the final migration for us was social media. And that, of course, is what we're doing right now. Podcasts, YouTube channels, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm probably leaving out a half a dozen here, but social media is definitely an extension of this kind of utilizing the current tools to reach your customers. Now, for us, in the call centers that we have, and we have two of them, there's the communication product call center and the power services call center. The final evolution or current evolution there is implementation of speech to text. And, you know, it's no different than your cell phone when you say, hey, Siri, text my friend John Doe or whatever. We are working on developing the capability for our account managers to actually talk to their computer and have it open up some of these CRM tools, Outlook, create emails, and speech to text, basically. The other thing that we're implementing is providing ChatGPT-4 to the desktop. And the reason we like that is the people that we hire have varying degrees of skill. Some are highly articulate, and then others not so. What ChatGPT-4 will do for us is develop a consistent, professional method of communication. Now, we've done that in a roundabout way already by creating situational templates, email templates, for example. And there are a long list of them that are related to certain needs that our customers have. Quote follow-up, for example. Accounting functions such as collections. In the GMC world, it's a wide variety of things that have to do with their cars. Is the car getting bricked? Do we need a log file? Are they trying to order something from the website, and what should they order? So these situational templates allow people to select them without having to sit there and spend 5 to 15 minutes typing out a personalized email. And if they use a template, they can use the template and then adjust it or personalize it for that client. But again, it's much more productive and it takes a lot less time. And it's usually more accurate because the links in there provide all kinds of additional information. Got a bunch of questions here. All right, let's take those. YouTube. George says, Mr. Pete, Mr. Pete Show is my Sunday church. You know, we've talked about that, said sometimes our AI podcasts do dive into the intersection of religion and AI. And later on, we'll have a bit of that. And I sometimes feel like this is like a Sunday morning church session. George again says, Jesse was only a concept in the 80s. LOL.
That is very true, yes.
Yeah, I never thought of that. Were you around then?
89.
89. Okay. Oh my God. Yeah. Mid 80s. Yeah. You were a concept. That's right. Spring chicken. Highlander Apparel. What about AI running metal printers and dark factories? Yeah. Fascinating. That is our future. Robots don't need light. They don't need temperature control.
They don't need breaks. They don't need food.
Breaks, toilets, food. Yeah, exactly. And raises. We got to insert that as well.
Another one, yeah. Make it work 24 hours.
Instagram. Abdelaziz Machine, or a Machine. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. Good job, man. Well, thank you. TikTok. Pepsi Adventures. He says, I have a Model X P90L. It has 115,000 miles on it. Any concerns coming soon? You know, the P90, ludicrous, probably ludicrous.
I was talking about Model X, though.
Yeah.
So.
You know, here in our hot climate with a lot of sun, the X's suffer a bit because if you park them the wrong way and that gull wing door heats up, it struggles a bit reliably opening and closing. The X's and the S's, they have from time to time battery issues, and it's certainly not the broad range of vehicles, but certain vehicles, when you get that dreaded, the isolation faults, then you have to have a battery replaced if you take it to a Tesla service center. If you've got 115,000 miles on it, I can't predict for you how much longer it's going to last. I think my wife's car is 120,000 now, and it's still going strong. She's got a P90D. So it varies, but no predictions on our end here. George says from YouTube, but does Chat GPT have a good beard? You know, there's a good question. We can ask AI, what do you look like, and see what it might come up with. And Midjourney is probably a better tool for that. All right, so continuing here with how businesses are going to adopt artificial intelligence. The things that we're working on, like I mentioned, the evolving programs, speech to text and ChatGPT-4 to desktops, is definitely cutting edge at this point in time. And we predict that this is going to be the future. All right, so we were continuing here with what AI thinks, how it will integrate businesses. Let's continue on this second thread here. All right, personalizations. It says that AI can analyze, of course, vast amounts of data and create a personalized experience for each customer, including recommendation or special offers. And this will likely improve the conversion rates and customer satisfaction because instead of a human being trying to listen and read between the lines, AI has a much better opportunity to capture the essence of what a customer's needs are because it has photographic memory to start with. The impact on the workforce. It says, now this is AI again talking, it says some roles may be reduced or eliminated as AI handles more routine interactions. However, new roles might emerge that require human empathy, creativity, or in depth product knowledge that AI cannot replicate. Now, this is AI admitting that there may be some things that it can't replicate. And then it says continuous training will become essential to keeping human agents updated with new tools and technologies.
I don't know, Pete. You and I have both spent some good time with ChatGPT and with Bard,
Mm-hmm.
and it does a really good job of emulating human emotion specifically, which you think would be hard to do, but I think with the wealth of data, it does a decent job, a convincing job, even to the point where that person we wanted to interview, Blake Lemoyne, I think
Mm-hmm.
he was saying that he thinks that the Google version is sentient.
Yeah, there's a level of
You
sentience.
know, so there's some pretty convincing stuff there. I'm wondering what exactly it's not going to be able to emulate if it can do a pretty good job with emotions, which I think are probably the most complex things about us.
Well, if you remember too, when we first got our version of Bard, when it first came out, we were taking great pleasure in attempting to circumvent any guardrails that they may have put up.
Yeah.
And the most recent versions of ChatGPT 4 and Bard seem to have been dumbed down quite a bit as they've added more and more guardrails. But
That's
you're right.
true. Yeah.
There were admissions that it has a degree of emotional IQ. It's just different from humans.
Yeah.
From
It's got its
a
own
human.
experience, its own version of what it feels like to be alive.
Yep. And unfortunately, we didn't get a lot of detail at that time because we thought that we could continue to query it as to what the differences between human emotions and machine emotions are and will be. And then, of course, it shut down and says, well, I don't have any emotion at all. What are you talking about? Right?
Well, then there's the weird, kind of creepy stuff of getting good answers out of it, and then the next day there were guardrails up,
Exactly.
which is kind of strange.
And in the text, because it saves the questions and the answers, portions of our text that were saved
We're
had
gone,
been
yeah.
deleted.
Yep, completely missing.
Completely missing, exactly. And we didn't do it
Yeah.
because we had missed the opportunity to get screenshots before it got
Well, so
deleted.
that's the thing is I was relying on that history being enabled, not knowing that they would go into the history and delete the chats out of there.
Right.
So I didn't screenshot it, but from now on we screenshot everything.
Yeah. So for those of you that are into conspiracy theories, there's a good example that something's going on behind the scenes because we witnessed it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So then they talk about quality control and compliance. It says that artificial intelligence can monitor calls and interactions to ensure adherence to quality standards and compliance regulations. So if you start calling your customer names because you got mad at them, AI is going to call you out on that and hold you accountable or notify your manager is basically what it's saying. And it says this includes real-time feedback to agents, fostering continuous improvement. And of course, the fact that it's being monitored will improve performance as well. Then they talk, it talks about data-driven decision-making. All right. It says artificial intelligence can analyze call data to uncover trends, bottlenecks, and opportunities, enabling managers to make more informed decisions. Now, one of the things that we have that has been created since day one when we got our CRM system was a lead tracking method. Let me describe that briefly. We have people that are on the phones, getting past gatekeepers, looking for opportunities, educating people on what we do, what we make, and what services we provide, and then identifying decision makers in those companies that would be interested in those products and services. The worst strategy is when you have an account manager that we're paying to be on the phones to gather this information that A, isn't logging it properly into the CRM, and worse yet, as a lead comes along, they are not documenting it or passing it on if they're in the lead generating pool, so you basically lose all of that effort. What AI can do is track this. Right now, we're doing it using humans that are doing lead tracking, but AI will be 100%. There is no ambiguity. There is no decision making. It's going to track everything.
Well, the other thing, Pete, as soon as this gets even more advanced, is in the future the AI will just take the lead and follow it all the way through. If you
Yes.
have a built profile of all the different possible scenarios and answers and sales techniques and information about the company and product, the AI could facilitate that conversation with that lead and take it all the way to the end,
Sure.
theoretically.
Which currently is still in the realm of human interaction, because if the person on the other end doesn't know what we do and who we are and what we make and what services we have, there is a lot of question and answer that needs to take place. And you're right, AI could zero in on that. Right now, we have human beings that are involved in that process and then making decisions about what to educate that customer on and what capabilities we have. But then you're right. If we're using AI and some of our current tools, links to our website, links to more information, all of that could be communicated not just by the humans we have on the phone, but by eventually AI or the robots.
Yeah.
Or the machines.
All automated.
Yeah. They talk about predictive analytics can be applied to anticipate customer need and preferences. Again, AI shines here, as do human beings, actually. A good account manager has an innate ability to zero in on what it's going to take to close that business. They talk about integration with other channels. AI can link the call center with other sales channels like email, social media, and online stores, and e-store links to provide a seamless multi-channel experience. And everything that we're describing here, again, are things that humans are doing now that AI can also do. And then it says this ensures a consistent and coherent communication across the different platforms. Then AI gets into ethical considerations. As AI becomes a more integral part of the call center, ethical considerations regarding data privacy and transparency will become increasingly important. We certainly don't want someone hacking into our AI functions and say, hey, can I have your customer database? Or can you tell me about this particular customer? So security is definitely paramount here. And then they say ensuring the guardrails being put up, for example, would ensure fairness and avoiding biases in the AI algorithms, and that will be a continuing challenge. Cost efficiency. While the initial investment in AI technology might be higher than humans, over time it can lead to cost savings by automating routine tasks and increasing efficiency. And then the final part, and this is AI again, telling us what it can do in a call center environment. It says it can enhance employee experience by automating mundane tasks. Employees can now engage in more fulfilling and complex problem solving. How many times does an employee have to reiterate what it takes to, for example, take care of a brick roadster? When I was getting, by the way, I had my laser surgery over the weekend, Friday actually, and I went through various stages of customer service, and one of them was at the end when one of the girls at the front desk was giving me a bag of drops and then some instructions as to what I needed to do. And you know what I found fascinating? She had said this so many times to so many people that she forgot that she was talking to me and began to recite from rote memory, and it was so poorly done that some of the words were not distinguishable because she was running them together, because in her mind she had said this so many times and was annoyed at some level that she had to say it yet one more time. Well, anyway, we take the human beings out of that mundane task, and we have AI do it consistently, accurately, with a pleasant attitude every single time without any emotion. All right, and then of course the final thing that AI is telling us, however, this might also lead to concerns regarding job security and significant changes in job roles and responsibilities. Well, we know that, and that's the big concern, and that's one of the reasons that we have these podcasts, is to help us identify the areas that may become an issue for replacement in the workplace with these kinds of technologies. not only AI moving into the workplace, how it can help us, but eventually robots or machines that can do this job alongside human counterparts. And that's what our background image is all about. If you notice, we have a human manager there with a bunch of robots at the desk replicating a call center environment. All right, we got a bunch of questions, and then I've got a new deviation for you here. YouTube, George says, X, nope. Sell it while you can, LOL. He's talking to a previous question about 115,000-mile Tesla Model X, and should he keep it or think about replacing. From YouTube, Clark Schwartz, welcome. Thank you for joining us. How about AI when talking to someone with a foreign language to translate as you talk to help you have a conversation? Bingo, you nailed it. AI can instantly translate and do a much better job than some of the human interpreters. I think the funniest thing that I see is when you have a high-level event, like Putin talking, for example, and then you have a translator that is trying to put it into English, and they're botching it badly. AI is going to do a much better job with that, for certain. YouTube, Peter Pett. Robots don't have the lifespan of a human entering the workforce from 20, ending well over 65. That's over 45 years of service. Good point. But let me insert something there. Like any kind of technology, you don't keep your washing machine for 45 years or your car. As technology improves, you are going to want to upgrade your robots, your technology, as the evolution of technology continues to improve. So yes, although a robot's lifespan may not be 45 years, that is the case for a different reason, in that technology has surpassed it so much that you're not going to want to use that old washing machine or that old car anymore. You know, there are few things in life that seem to never quite need to get replaced. The refrigerator in your kitchen is one of those examples. How often do you change those? They seem to last forever.
Yeah, they go a while.
Yeah.
Especially if you just everything becomes more modular as tech gets better.
Yeah.
You just replace pieces here and there, and you should be fine. Some of the smart homes are like that nowadays with all the newer tech. It just doesn't look the same. It doesn't function the same, and they're little swappable things that you can just upgrade it.
And a good example of that is your coffee machine, when you replaced it, probably isn't being replaced because it failed. It's because you wanted something a bit more state-of-the-art. You wanted it to grind the beans along with making it. You wanted it to add some milk or whatever. And you wanted one of those barista-style coffee machines that had yet even more features.
Got to have the status of having the new iPhone every year.
That's that too, yeah. There's another good example. How many people still use their rotary phones or their flip phones? And we don't have a brick here, but we usually have a brick phone here that I'll hold up when we get to this point of the discussion. George says, Pete, have you watched the movie Free Guy? It's about a NPC that was created in code in a video game that got a consciousness. It's a GTA Online background. The AI thinks it is real. Blue shirt guy. I have not seen that, but that sounds like an interesting thing to watch.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Oh, you've seen it?
Yeah, it's what's his name? One of the really famous action stars is in it. I forget his name. I don't remember.
It'll come to you when it does. Yeah,
but
just remind us.
It's pretty good. It's a good flick.
Okay. Highlander Apparel says, off topic. On my way back to Circle K yesterday, I saw a blue Amazon van said powered by Rivian. The huge warehouse is very near to me. I'm going to volunteer for free to work on them to get my OJT, on-the-job training. Interesting. All right. Well, let us know how that goes. Highlander Apparel also says from YouTube, very informative. Still maintain my 5-year-old niece is smarter. My resume and popular science is on the way. You know, I admit the same thing. When I need my cell phone programmed, and by the way, I refused to carry a cell phone until about 5 years ago. And people used to ask me, how can you function without it? And I said, I'm doing quite well, thank you. And it wasn't until I realized that moving around our 7 commercial buildings here, I am oftentimes completely out of touch, and I realize that I need a connection, and that's when I began carrying a cell phone. But when I need my cell phone fixed, or I need it to ring a different tone, or I want a different background, my 7-year-old granddaughter does an infinitely better job of teaching me how to use my phone. So I get what you're saying. Facebook, Jake Riddle says Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds, and then George said that as well. Says it's a great movie. Yep,
Okay.
that's who it is.
And George is pointing out Mr. Pete. He says eye drops for replacing reading glasses. Yes, after this laser surgery, I have to put drops in for the next 2 weeks, every hour, and then every 4 hours with another one. But I can tell you this. I hesitated for a long time because I never want anybody to cut on my eye. And they don't call it cutting on your eye when you get laser surgery. They say, oh, no, it's not cutting, in the sense of a blade. The laser does all that. Well, it's still cutting. They open a flap and all that, but you won't feel anything. Well, it's the thought of it that kind of bothered me. But it wasn't until I really realized that these podcasts would be a lot better if I had laser surgery, because now I can see the screen that's about 15 feet down the path here in the studio with questions, and I can see my screen up front, and I don't have to squint, and the font back there doesn't have to be 160 font anymore. So we're doing good. And my first indication that it worked was the following morning. Everything was cloudy at first. I only did one eye, by the way. The following morning, I got up. Sun was just barely beginning to peek up, and I looked at the horizon, and it occurred to me that it's crystal clear, and I don't have my glasses on. So I'm pretty excited about it and happy with it. Yesterday, we were out eating, and in the bar area, there was a flat screen that was showing the Cardinals football game. Terrible game, by the way. Chiefs just annihilated them. But anyway, for the first time, I was able to see the screen, see the score from about 60 feet away, and it was pure joy. So I'm happy with the results, and thank you. So the next thing, Jesse, if we can pop up an image called Jesus Chat. And, as much as I try to avoid it, guys, the intersection of religion and AI is very powerful, and it's very difficult to ignore. What we're going to do is pop up a chat image here. And apparently there is a company in Los Angeles called Catloaf Software, CATLOAF, that has developed an app that allows you to talk to Jesus, have a Jesus chat. It's a thing that we've been talking about. We did a video about 4 months ago or so. Wouldn't it be nice to have a God chat, rather than this doing prayer and waiting for a result and never getting an answer directly, and maybe manifestations in your life that give you answer? How about a direct chat? Yeah, I can do that. I'll have it for you Monday morning, And by the way, you're doing a good job. You're a fine human being, but here's an area you can improve in. Take better care of your neighbor, that type of thing. Well, this is an app, apparently, that allows you to chat with Jesus. And the article goes something like this. Have you ever wondered how Jonah felt while he was trapped inside the whale's stomach for 3 days? So you can talk to more than just Jesus, apparently. Why Solomon had so many wives, or why Judas betrayed Jesus? Well, with this app, you can ask yourself. And by the way, we do that later, so stick around, because I asked AI, I asked it to become Judas Iscariot, and I said, Judas, what were you thinking? Why did you do this? And the answers were pretty interesting. All right. But this Text with Jesus was launched in July of this year, created by Catloaf Software. It is an app developer in Los Angeles, and you can look it up. It's kind of interesting. So this app replicates an instant messaging platform with biblical figures impersonated by AI, a program called ChatGPT. All right. The characters available are members of the Holy Family, the apostles, the prophets, Ruth, Job, Abraham, anybody that you can find in the Bible, Lot. Now, some people are calling this blasphemy. All right. It's an interesting judgment. But again, it exists, and it's out there, and people are beginning to use it. So what they do is they stir AI and they tell it, you are Jesus or you are Moses or whoever. And knowing what you already have in your database, you respond to the questions based on their characters, said the founder of this company, Philosophizing Peter, who is the app's developer and the company's CEO. Peter, who founded this Catloaf software in 2011, actually had built numerous more static applications with historic figures, including texts from the founding fathers, texts from Oscar Wilde, and more recently, text from Jesus, in which users received quotes from the figures in question, but back then they couldn't interact. Well, now with ChatGPT 4, it is bidirectional. They can actually have a conversation. So this 46-year-old developer, Philosophizing Peter, who, by the way, came to the U.S. from France. That's how he got that weird name, by the way. Most foreigners have different names. Have you noticed that? Sorry, I had to digress. All right. He says he wondered how to use AI to upgrade the text from the Jesus app. So in February, he started digging into OpenAI and which at that time had launched ChatGPT 4, and he created a proper chat from a simple devotional app. Now, instead of just getting Bible verses, you now get a chance through this app to chat with any of these figures or anyone else in the Bible, he says. There are a few limits as to what users can ask the app's characters, and he doesn't go on to describe what those are, but it's most likely the guardrail stuff. And I'll show you later on what I ran into when I asked ChatGPT 4 to become Judas Iscariot and tell me, what the hell were you thinking when you did that? So anyway, it says, when asked how Jesus defined a good Christian, this app, JesusBot, replied that such a person will profess faith in me, but also follow my teachings and embody them in life, and quotes a passage from the Gospel of Matthew in which Jesus teaches that the greatest commandment is, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Even that annoying neighbor that won't trim his tree and it's falling in your yard. You got to love that guy, right? Peter said that he didn't work with any theological advisors on this project, and he did train AI to stick to the biblical tradition as hard as possible. But then he went to church leaders and he invited them to try this text with Jesus once he had a beta version. He says some pastors complained that some responses lacked Bible chapters and verse citations, or about the strange, uptight tone in which Jesus talked. But the final version, Peter said, received pretty good feedback from the professionals. Well, now, we never spoke to Jesus directly. Maybe he did have a terse tone. Maybe AI's onto something here. But he also said he fixed that, so the strange, uptight tone now is also gone. He updated it to speak more like a regular person and ensured it didn't forget that it's supposed to get stuff from the Bible, but he says it's a constant trick to find the right balance. He says, in case users are tempted to reveal sensitive information about themselves, they might get lost in the notion that they're actually talking to the real Jesus and begin to, talk about their personal lives.
Be like Blake Lamone, thinking it's actually like a communication with Jesus himself.
Exactly. He says that in this app, all information is stored temporarily, just long enough for the AI program to keep track of the conversation, but the server does not keep any identifying information about the users. All right. So let me go on here and I'll tell you what I did to test this theory. And the first thing I did was I said, okay, AI, you are now Moses. What common language did Jehovah use when communicating with you? And the reason I used the name Jehovah for God was that was the Hebrew God at the time. And the comeback was, my communication with Jehovah, the God of Israel, was an experience beyond words, filled with awe, reverence, and profound humility, that I was chosen to be a messenger and a leader for his people. but I never lost sight of my own human limitations. Now, he's not quite telling us what language they spoke in yet. He says, my first encounter with Jehovah was at the burning bush. Both sight, both mesmerizing and terrifying. God's voice came to me from the midst of the flames. Now, this sounds like speech because, flames don't exactly communicate messages. Commanding me to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. I was filled with doubt and hesitation, but Jehovah assured me and provided signs to show his power and commitment to his people. Now, he didn't say what signs, but, maybe it was a few explosions and, and some thunder perhaps, but something that would, clearly indicate that there was a powerful entity here that was giving this message. He says, throughout the arduous journey from Egypt to the promised land, Jehovah guided me and spoke to me. He gave the law, the commandments, and detailed instructions how his people were to live and worship. Then he gives us an indication, too, what the communication might have been like. He says, sometimes his voice was like thunder, full of authority and might, and other times it was gentle and reassuring. So it looks like God at that time, or Jehovah, spoke Hebrew. Unless, of course, Moses spoke other languages, which I kind of doubt because, there wasn't, we didn't have the exposure to different languages back then. So then Moses also says, when I was on Mount Sinai, Jehovah's presence was so intense that the mountain quaked and was filled with smoke. He spent 40 days and nights there, receiving commandments and other instructions. And he says the tablets were stone and inscribed by God's finger. So this is probably to help Moses remember, because if there were words exchanged, it was, although it wasn't that long, I think what was inscribed on the tablets wasn't that lengthy. He says, at times there was frustration and anger, as the people often grumbled and turned away from God's commands, but Jehovah's patience and mercy were abundant, and he continually guided us and provided for our needs. The final part of what this AI Moses is saying is, my relationship with Jehovah was not merely a series of commandments and responses, it was a profound connection that shaped my entire life and destiny of this nation. And his faith, he says, was tested and refined through trials, but never broken. All right. I then I asked a bit more about the language, and I really didn't get much more other than the first portion that I just read you. What I was really after was an admission that there was Hebrew being communicated. But anyway, it didn't go much further than that. All right, so then I continued, and I'm going to read you next AI being asked to chime in as Judas Iscariot. And I said, you are now Judas. Why did you betray Jesus? And AI began to respond, I will continue to speak in character as Judas Iscariot. Betraying Jesus was not a decision I made lightly, nor can it be explained simply. It was a complex situation filled with various emotions, motivations, and even perhaps misunderstandings. Some may say I was driven by greed because I accepted 30 silver pieces for this betrayal, and that money was involved, but it might not have been the whole reason. I was the treasurer for the group, and I was concerned about our finances. So now he's kind of hinting to the fact that these 30 pieces of silver may have helped the treasury for the disciples and the apostles. And then he says, others might argue that I was disillusioned and disappointed with Jesus. I followed him, expecting him to be a conquering Messiah who would overthrow the Roman occupiers. As time went on, I realized that Jesus' kingdom was not of this world, and perhaps frustrated with the way his leading us sparked something within me. Now, here's an interesting deviation now. He says, maybe I even thought I was doing the right thing, forcing Jesus to act, to move in a more revolutionary way by handing him over to the authorities. Perhaps I believed that I would lead him to assert his power as a Messiah, to rise up and fulfill the prophecies in a way that met my expectations. So it looks like he may have expected him to annihilate his would-be executioners, rather than passively allowing them to crucify him. Then he goes on and he says, in the end, the why of all this may be something I myself never really understood, because I felt a growing distance from Jesus, a confusion about his teachings, and a gnawing discontent. And the terrible act I committed seemed to almost be fated, yet it led me to my utter ruin. My betrayal set in motion the events leading to Jesus' crucifixion. The guilt and despair I felt afterwards were unbearable. I tried to return the money and even confessed my sin, but I found no relief or forgiveness. The realization of what I had done was overwhelming, and it led me to a tragic end in the field brought with blood money. I took my own life, a broken and tormented man, forever known as the one who betrayed the Savior. The complexity of human emotions and motivations is such that even now it's hard to pinpoint exactly why I did what I did. All I can say is that my actions were a profound mistake, one that I would give anything to undo if I could. Now, here's an interesting thing that happened. In this last paragraph, it was going to continue. It suddenly took all of the font that it had published so far in ChatGPT-4, it turned it red, stopped, and then a disclaimer popped up. And the disclaimer said from ChatGPT-4, this content may violate our content policy. If you believe this to be an error, please submit your feedback. Your input will aid our research in this area. And it stopped with that thread, with that conversation. Now, why did it take ChatGPT-4 or AI so long to realize that it was heading off into a territory that perhaps violated some guardrails? Why wasn't that immediately apparent? And is AI actually teaching itself as it's communicating what it should or should not be communicating? So there's an interesting side note there. So that was the question with Judas Iscariot. Now, earlier, the Jesus Chat app talked about, wouldn't it be interesting to talk to Jonah? I remember Jonah, for those of you that didn't go to Sunday school, was a prophet that was swallowed by a fish.
So before we dive into that, we got some questions up there for you.
All right, let's go to those then, and then I'll get to Jonah. Let me find Jonah here before we get there. Oh my God, I've got so much this morning. All right, there it is. All right, so YouTube, watch rebuilds. George, I can't see going to the eye doctor, LOL. All right, well, if it helps you. Pete, been there. Smoke comes off yours. Glad to hear that you're doing well. Kindness is still free. You know, there was one point during the laser surgery, and it was fast. It was like 3 minutes. And I was seeing some red and green twinkling, not feeling any pain, by the way, just some pressure. And then I smelled what might have been some tissue being cauterized. That was about the only odd experience during this whole thing. George says, from YouTube, we need an Elon AI chat. Sorry, Jesse, I am texting too much, LOL.
No, you're good, George.
You're good. You know, if we can get Elon on our podcast, we won't need an AI chat. But if he doesn't come on our podcast, that's a great idea. We can have AI impersonate Elon and see what he says. And you know, I think what everybody wants to ask is this fight going to happen or not? So maybe next podcast we'll do that and we'll report back. Highlander Apparel, I'm asking my priest to watch you guys. He's an engineer in Metro Toledo. You know, we'd love to hear some feedback. What do the religious clerics and the experts think about this intersection of AI and religion? And how will it integrate? What will we do? Will it become a belief system? George says, Mr. Pete, as you know, people aren't that smart and they will follow anyone and anything they will see or hear, like AI or this Jesus chat. It's actually pretty sad and scary. The gods are aliens. Thank you. Instagram, Abdelaziz Moshin says, Traduit, an Arabic language master.
I think that's when you're talking about what languages were being spoken.
Yeah, good point. All right, thank you. Then George says, just like fire dragons are misunderstood and spaceships, it was the only label they could identify what they saw for their time. Good point. The book of Revelations is full of Ezekiel's visions where he's trying to describe what could be high-tech gadgetry. And if you look at it, this could have been a quadcopter or a helicopter
some
or
kind
a
of
jet.
advanced tech,
yeah, some advanced tech, exactly. Highlander Apparel, sympathy for the devil. We haven't gotten into any of that because I'm sure AI can weigh in on that as well. George says, wow, look at Jesse. You got more likes than viewers today. That never happened, LOL.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have to look into that one.
All right. Jake Riddle from Facebook says, are you going to franchise Gruber Motor Company? No, we get asked that question a lot, Jake. Right now, it's just not in the cards. We have more business than we can handle, and creating more bricks and mortar and franchising would be the obvious way to scale. But the limitations that we have is manpower. You just can't find people in the independent space that can actually repair these vehicles to the level that we do. The OEMs like Tesla and the rest of the ones creating service delivery have an easier time because they have huge part rooms at their disposal and they can do module swapping to fix things. We have to repair things right down to component level, and that takes a really unique skill that most people in the EV space just do not possess yet. Eventually they will. YouTube, Highlander Apparel. Have you guys watched The Chosen? Regardless of your beliefs, it's an awesome watch. Have you, Jesse? I have not.
I've not seen that one, nope.
Okay, well, there's one to put on the list. Thank you. Instagram, Suraj R. Official. Hello. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us. All right, so earlier we were talking about what these biblical entities might have experienced. And I'm going to take you to a question that I asked Jonah, who, if you recall your Sunday school lessons, was swallowed up by a large fish and spent 3 days in there. And it was interesting what AI came back with. Yeah, give me a chance here. As these talking points get so long that it's tough for me to find them at times. And are there any questions, Jesse, that we can entertain while I'm searching through here?
Let me double check here. So wait, you're looking for the...
Yeah, I'm looking for in my talking points for the Jonah question, yeah.
Okay, well, George asked any updates on the Chinese Roadsters.
Chinese Roadsters, they'll be here the 26th. No change in plans that we're aware of, so we're pretty excited about getting those 3 sea containers that should be coming in here. What is that? That's this week, isn't it?
The 26th?
Yeah.
That should be the end of this coming week, yep.
Yeah, okay.
We have another question from Instagram. What do you think about the future of EV repairing?
EV repairing, okay, that one I can spend some time with. All right, let's see. I can't find the Jonah one. All right, whatever. The future of EV repairing. It's going to continue to evolve. We do not think that the EV incumbents that are, or the new EV manufacturers up and coming are going to be able to build their service delivery quickly enough, and they'll be looking for companies like us to outsource and augment their service delivery. And rightfully so. You know, they should be focused on continuing their production, getting their manufacturing nailed down, and producing cars. And when you throw in, like Tesla did initially, and they had to, developing a nationwide or a global charging system and developing nationwide and global service delivery, those are, they are very heavy cash drains. and of course take a lot of time and energy. And if these newer companies can avoid that by using, for example, the next standard, or by outsourcing and augmenting their service delivery, that gives them more of a chance to catch up and create vehicles that can be put out in the marketplace as electric vehicles. All right.
Okay, and then we have one from TikTok. Somebody who's not in a very good mood today. Somebody says, "Only my dogs love me." That's the name of the person.
Oh.
Says, "I have a cloud behind the sun for those moronic sunglasses you wear." Now, I don't know what that means to have a cloud behind the sun, but
Yeah.
it's unfortunate you're in such a bad mood today, but appreciate the comment.
We hope you feel better. So one of the parallels that I make, and this, of course, somewhat stays with religion, but it gets us away from the Jesus chat. There is a metaphysical concept called Akashic Records, aka SHIC. And it is one of the foundations of a religion called Theosophy, which was actually created by Madame Blavatsky. And I'm going to find that here as well in a moment. There we go. In 1831. So it's been around for a while. She was around from 1831 to 1891, and she characterized it as the sort of life force that she referred to as indestructible tablets of the astral light. And it's recordings, both past and future, of human thought and action. And it kind of sounds like artificial intelligence, all-knowing, everything is recorded. And so I asked AI to describe its relationship to Akashic Records, thinking there might be some similarities. But before I go any further, let me make sure that I have properly described Akashic Records to you. And this is according to Wikipedia, which says that Akashic Records are a compendium of all universal events, thoughts, words, emotions, and intent that have ever occurred over the past, present, or future in terms of all entities and life forms, not just human. They are believed by the Theosophists to be encoded in a non-physical plane of existence known as the mental plane. And because it is believed that the records are encoded vibrationally into the inherent fabric of space and time, some have likened the mechanism as similar to how holograms are created. There is currently no scientific evidence for the existence of Akashic Records, and rigorous scientific research in this field has seen little traction. By the word, Akashic comes from Akasha, which is a Sanskrit word for aether, sky, or atmosphere. So here's what AI had to say when I asked it, how do Akashic Records relate to AI? Because it sounded to me it's pretty similar. What it said was, the Akashic Records are a concept found in Theosophy and some spiritual belief systems. They are said to be a cosmic library or database of all knowledge and experience that exists in the etheric planes, accessible through certain psychic or spiritual means. Now, meditation for, well into the last century was actually prescribed as one of the ways that you can tap into the Akashic Records. And if you reach enlightenment, then all knowledge will be available to you. Then AI continues. AI, or artificial intelligence, is a field of computer science that focuses on creating machines capable of thinking and learning like humans. It involves algorithms, data processing, machine learning, and other technological processes. On the surface, however, these two concepts may seem entirely unrelated. However, some might find a connection or parallels between them in certain ways. And then it goes into some similarities. 1. Comprehensive knowledge. The Akashic Records are said to contain all knowledge and wisdom, past, present, and future. In a more grounded sense, AI can process vast amounts of data and information, aiming to replicate, even surpass human understanding in specific domains. Accessibility. Just as some believe that the Akashic records can be accessed by spiritual practitioners through meditation and other psychic means, AI allows us to access and analyze data in ways that were previously impossible, providing insights and understanding across various fields. 3. Ethical considerations. Both concepts raise significant ethical questions. First, the Akashic records. These might include questions about privacy, consent, and the responsible use of spiritual knowledge. In AI, these ethical considerations revolve around issues like biases, transparency, accountability, and the potential impact on employment and society. And then the fourth category that is mentioned by AI as being a potential similarity is mysticism versus science. Some might see the Akashic records as AI and AI. Let me begin. Some might see the Akashic records and AI as representing opposite ends of a spectrum, with the former emphasizing spiritual, mystical, or metaphysical understanding, and the latter grounded in empirical science and technology. It is important, AI continues, to note that these connections are speculative and largely metaphorical. The concept of the Akashic records is a spiritual belief that falls outside the scope of empirical science, while AI is a technological field grounded in mathematics, computer science, and engineering. So the summation here is, so while there may be intriguing parallels or philosophical discussions to be had, there is no direct or practical connection between the Akashic records and AI in terms of functionality or underlying principles. So there you have it. Now, of course, once AI moves into AGI and is all-knowing, it would be interesting to see whether it can tap into Akashic records and begin to add some dimension to AGI. All right, a lot of questions coming in here. YouTube, Highlander Apparel says, components. Try repeating a Gen 2 Toshiba CNC I/O card that I had to replace chips on. Yeah, exactly. Recalibrating, I think, was the term that I mispronounced the first time around. Yeah, when we do chip replacements, oftentimes we find that not only are there other components that are affected because damage like that typically goes upstream and downstream, but with firmware typically running on these boards, oftentimes it requires a firmware redeploy. YouTube, George says, Pete, why do you think that Vitacon is so threatened by this AI thing? Are they hiding something? Well, I don't know. I don't know what they might be hiding. Instagram, Biswadget 1_Nyack says, in terms of EV repairing, if a company wants to repair their EVs, they swap their things. Is it easy? Or does it need a technician? Well, the simple answer to that is in an EV, like a Tesla Model S, for example, many of the modules require a firmware redeploy, unlike an old mechanical car where you can change a door handle or an alternator and the car continues to run. With these new devices, they're smart. And the firmware has to establish a relationship or identify that new part and realign it into the firmware. So yes, it requires some software manipulation along with a hardware or a module swap. And the final part of the question is, please forgive me, I am not getting anything what you are saying right now. Okay, with the AI is version is probably what we're referring to. And for those of you that are coming in from different parts of the world, I understand that language oftentimes is not common, and some of these concepts with AI can get pretty deep, and we chase down some really deep rabbit holes from time to time. George is saying, oh no, Jesse is spinning in his chair. The podcast is over an hour. LOL. Love you guys. Are you spinning in your chair?
A little bit.
Are you? Okay.
We're at an hour and 15, Pete.
All right.
No, we're good. We're good.
All right. Let me see if there are any other final questions. And I wish I could find my Jonah thing because this was really cool. I'll just paraphrase for you. So I asked Jonah, or AI to pose as Jonah, what was it like inside the fish, Jonah? And he goes on, or AI goes on, to describe the conditions in there. It was dark, of course, slimy. He could feel the fish swimming in the undulating stomach cavity as it was swimming through the water, and the stank, and the fact that the air was lousy in there, but there was some air, right? And but the most poignant thing, I think, was when he goes on to describe that those 3 days he spent in the bowels and fish, the stomach of that fish, gave him a renewed lease on life, and that he was a lot of introspection was available to him. And when he came out, he had a new appreciation for life. So anyway, if I find it next week, maybe I'll read it to you. But that's the Jonah story. And, you kind of wonder, the level of detail that was provided by AI is not strictly it reading Bible verses and then interpreting. There was much more than was available in the Bible. So you kind of have to wonder sometimes, is AI just a wonderful, writer or an entertainer, and it's actually embellishing and adding? Or is it tapping into something much deeper than that? We won't know that for now anyway. All right, so someone is saying, YouTube Highlander Peril says, my headhunter suggested I repair the chargers. I'm hungry, and a young 58. I'm going to eat their lunch and breakfast. Please send positive thoughts to my fork truck and law stuff, okay? I did nothing wrong. I think he's talking about getting hit by a forklift on the job. Instagram, ISayhill_2. What is the subject today? Sunday, Jesse and I come in and we go down rabbit holes and talk about artificial intelligence. And we try to grab news during the week that we think you might find informative and interesting. And we give a voice to all of the people that are concerned or hysterical about this new disruption that is coming our way that stands to revolutionize how we go to work, what we do at work, and how this planet is going to continue. The other podcast, by the way, if you're into electric vehicles, Tuesday at 10 o'clock, we do EV podcast. Wednesday, we do our Tesla Roadster podcast. And Thursday, it's EV again. Friday, we have a different team that comes in, does critical power podcasts. And then Sunday, Jesse and I volunteer our time and come in and just brainstorm AI. George is saying, sounds fishy. Yeah, the Jonah story definitely will be. All right. It looks like we're going to be wrapping up here. And as always, I appreciate you guys coming in, also telling us where you're from. And we will have our next podcast Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. And as someone asked earlier, what about the 3 Chinese roadsters? Well, they're on the boat. They'll be unloaded the 26th. Probably won't see them until the first week in September. And as things get closer and unfold, we'll keep you guys updated.
Well, we'll actually keep you guys updated on that too, because there's a hurricane over there right now. So I don't know that they'll be here by the 26th.
I completely spaced that. You're right. How would a large tanker like that?
Yeah, getting into the port of Long Beach right now, I think that's going to be a very hard thing to do. So we'll have to double check on that.
So it sounds like there could be some even more delays. This has been one of the most delayed projects that we've ever been involved in. So stay tuned. And final,
real quick, Plywood on TikTok wants to know, what day do you speak about EV batteries?
EV batteries. Well, actually Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Wednesday we talk more about Roadster batteries. And for those of you looking for some empirical data on how multi-cell 18650 battery packs are aging, Wednesday might be your better day, because we do some deep dives into the Roadster batteries, which, remember, came out in 2008, and many of them are still going strong. So we don't know yet how long these multi-cell batteries are going to last. The design life was 10 years. We're now going on 15, and most recently, Tesla has released predictions that their power walls are going to last 20 to 22 years. And essentially the same type of technology, multi-cell 18650 or 2170 cell type packs. And then finally, George is saying from YouTube, I'd rather talk to AI instead of a woman. LOL. Thanks, guys. Happy Sunday. Great show. That's an interesting concept. I think one of the other rabbit holes we're going to go down eventually on this AI podcast is having a robot live-in companions. And we already have Alexa. You can talk to Alexa, but she's not real bright. But can you imagine a robot greeting you at the door, telling you, honey, I've cleaned all of the rooms, the bedroom, the toilets are cleaned, and supper's on the table.
And I've ordered groceries, and I've done this and that, everything, everything automated.
And it's well within the grasp of the technology that we currently have. Throw up one more picture, Jesse. It is the robot that cleans toilets. That was one that we did not bring up. And this one had me laughing. It is a toilet cleaning robot that actually will come in, spin some brushes around, and completely clean your toilet. And some of the comments that came up as this thing was released is, can you imagine this thing barging in, not realizing that you're on the john, and starting its cleaning process? That could be painful.
That would be bad.
Yeah. Instagram, John Noruzzi, one final comment. We've got a couple actually. Hi, do you have any classes for Tesla batteries? There are actually. If you go to our YouTube channel, Gruber Motors, you will find over 600 videos, and many of them deal with our battery experiences with the Teslas, from Roadster to Model S's, Model X's. And you can see all of those videos, even Model 3, come to think of it, because we did some teardowns. There is a lot of good technical content about these types of EV batteries in our videos. You'll have to sift through it, but the thumbnails will typically guide you. All right, final comment. George is thanking Jesse. And
thanks, George.
It's been a pleasure, all of you. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you Tuesday if you join us again for the next podcast. Thank you.